and send in as much information and question. I'll try to answer as many of them as possible. Always like talking about rum. My name is Arijit Bose. I've been in the bartending industry for about 15 years. As the world's been good to me, I run a cocktail outfit called Barback Collective, and I have my own rum that I make with a guy called David Cordoba, also known as Mr. Daiquiri, who I've worked with for 10 years and was the guy who actually took me out of India in terms of doing events and projects. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm going to tell you all about it. First questions first. How did my love for rum start? Super interesting. I used to work as nightclubs, as most bartenders do. Down the line, did a bunch of things and eventually worked for United Spirits Limited as a brand ambassador. So they had just bought over, Vijay Mallya had just bought over White and Mackay, and they had a bunch of whiskeys, including the Isle of Jura, and they also had they also had this strange vodka called Pinky, which was way ahead of its time. It was half rosé, rose and other floral elements that went in. I think it was way ahead of its time. If you launched that now, it would do really well. But I did have a black shirt called Pinky, and I would wear it around, and that's what people used to call me back in the day. Worked on that for about a good 8-10 months, ran a lot of music festivals, and eventually the guy who hired me at Bacardi was in USL. He shifted to Bacardi and offered me a sales job, telling me that it's one of the best things to learn in food and beverage, because if you know how to sell stuff, you can pretty much exist anywhere. Why is McDonald's not as good as Old Mark? Okay, I'll get there. So anyways, I worked as Bacardi. My first job was to sell it at bars, including Grey Goose, Martini, a bunch of stuff. Started drinking a lot more, did a year of sales, and then my boss, who's Jatin Bob, offered me a role which was a brand ambassador. So it was going to be my job to sell rum and mojitos not only in India but across the world. You do not say no to anything like that. I traveled to places like Puerto Rico, Russia, Australia, a bunch of places, spoke to people, drank rum with them, had a great friggin' time, right? So that's how I got ingrained. Like I said, the best things that happened. When I left Bacardi in 2012, David gave me a job which was to come to Puerto Rico and work with a bunch of people in running a rum competition. And from there, it just went wild. So that's how my love for rum started. As far as the rum world is concerned, rum has been made for a very, very long time, right? The guys that you should follow probably about rum is a guy called Dave Wundrich. Dave Broom is also really good. Ian Brunel. So they're all people that I listen to in terms of what's been happening in the rum industry. And recently, they tracked that the production of rum, which was usually attributed during the 17th century to Barbados around the world. So those guys who wrote about rum for the longest time, they just came online and said rum's first initiation or inception happened in India, which to me was phenomenal. And that's why I was like, shit, India needs to have a good quality rum. So I'm going to cover parts about Old Monk and McDowell's and all the other rums that do exist. So when we used to do Bacardi trainings or rum trainings as part of our presentation, we always used to talk about sugarcane. I do not know if you guys know this. Sugarcane was discovered in India. It came from New Guinea, Java, China, Australia, a bunch of places. Some of it made it to India. I'm talking about 1,000 or more years back. In fact, it was our source of sugar. And we used to have two different versions of it as well, which was, one of them was called Soma and Sura. You can go track about it. There's a lot of stuff written on it, which is what the Kshatriyas were drinking. Now, what is interesting is it was discovered, or as far as I know, what I read about it, it was discovered in India by a guy called Naracus, who was a general in Alexander's army. If you have seen Chanakya back in the day, or if you know anything about Alexander the Great, he ended his warring cycle in India. A bunch of his people got bit by mosquitoes. A lot of them died, but there was a huge part of their life that they spent in India, which is mostly Sindh and Punjab. That is the part that they came in from. Naracus wrote about this fact that Indians were getting sugar source from something which looked like long reeds, so which looked like grass. So basically what he was talking about was sugarcane. So we were not only extracting the juice from sugarcane and getting sugar out of it, but Narakis also wrote the fact that we were producing alcohol from it, like a beer or something more like a sura, which was a distilled format. So Dave Wunrich in a recent podcast talks about it. I'll post it here for you guys to go through it. Made me super happy. So it was Alexander's guy who wrote about it, and eventually this book went into Europe. You have to understand why this was a significant discovery, right? The reason this was a significant discovery is Europe, because of its weather condition, did not have any sugar cane. They did not have any fucking sugar. So for them, the way to get sugar was either through honey or through fruits or flower extracts. Cheers, guys, a little bit thirsty. So which is what laid in the groundwork of the sugar discovery. Europeans read about this. People like Vasco da Gama and Columbus started traveling, among other things. Then spices, gold, this and that. Sugar was the commodity which they were actually looking for, right? This led them to try and look for India, completely mucking that up and going towards America. West Indies was formed. Their local tribes were called Red Indians for some reason, because somebody fucked up and decided to cover it up. However, that name kind of stuck. But in later travels, they did make it to India and found sugarcane. Right. This is also the time that the Europeans were traveling quite a bit. Ended up in places like the South Americas, in the Caribbeans, which are all beautiful places now. But this is where the European ended up as new conquests. And when you conquer some place and you realize that the weather conditions are the same, they planted sugarcane there. Right? Reached all the way to Cuba. And no matter where you look in the world, in that belt, which we survive in, sugarcane is grown everywhere. From as far as Mexico, Argentina, down to parts of Spain, Africa. You move further down towards, of course, India. Go on to Thailand, Australia, New Zealand. Whether the weather condition are right, sugarcane is grown, thereby making it one of the highest consumed spirits in the world, right? And we did not even know about it. Rum was fairly big. A lot of people do talk about the fact that how rum is coming into vogue now, but rum was always in vogue. If you know, a drink like the mojito and daiquiri were the top 5 selling cocktails in the world, so it's always been around. Thereby everyone drinking rum and various styles of it. 1970s, Bacardi and Coke was the highest selling mixer or a cocktail in the world, which was initially called Cuba Libre, but when Coca-Cola got involved, it became Bacardi and Coke, and they were selling some 2 million or 20 million cases per year, which was huge. 1970s, 1980s, the world completely changed. Mojito was really big, daiquiri was really big. It was in movies, references were there. I used to run a nightclub, I used to work with a nightclub with my now partner Vaibhav Singh. We used to sell about 120 mojitos a day. It was phenomenal. It's a great little drink. Very few people know the fact that mojito comes from Cuba. Right? It's one of their drinks. It comes from a word called mojo, which usually means to cast a little spell. And it was interesting. The story is beautiful, but it comes at a time that Industrial Revolution was happening. People figured out how to make ice, and crushed ice came about, and mint leaf was being used. And for the first time, Cuba was the country, because of a guy called Don Facundo Bacardi, who figured out how to make lighter style rums. Right? They figured out distillation, they figured out filtration properly, they figured out how to take rum, which used to be called aguardiente, Aguardiente, which is a Taino-Indian word, or rather a Spanish. Actually, no, it's not a Taino-Indian. It's a Spanish word, which literally translated to fire water, right? Which was another one of the nicknames that rum was given, just like Kill Devil or Nelson's Blood. Of this, I like Nelson's Blood a lot because Admiral Nelson was on a ship and he had a shit ton of rum that he wanted to take from point A to point B, but during that whole journey he died out. and because he was a general and an aristocrat, they stored his body inside a cask which had rum in it, and they shut it down so that it would survive the 3-month or 6-month travel back home. Apparently, they lost their way and the journey became longer and people were thirsty on the boat, so they drilled a small hole and they started drinking the rum, right, whatever was inside. So eventually when they got to the port and they opened the cask, which was now substantially lighter, they realized that he had completely decomposed out and people had been drinking his rum and parts of Nelson in it. So Nelson's blood became a nice nickname for rum. It was also called rum bouillon, it was called rum, etc, etc, etc. If you look at it, if you go to France, they have a version of rum which is called rum agricole. So it's very different. So when you make, yeah, I know Mudassir, you think it's bad, but that's how the story goes. You gotta roll with the punches, man. They're all stories. I do not know how true they are, but since it's been written down, I would say I go with it as of now till somebody tells me otherwise. And it's a great little story. Places like Brazil, places like Martinique, a lot of these which the French had occupied, they were making a version of rum which was made from sugarcane juice direct. So they were called cane spirit or they were called rum agricole. Regular rum is usually made, or what we know as rum. So what they do is they take sugarcane juice, they boil it down, extract the sugar crystals, which we use as sugar in our day-to-day life. Whatever's left looks like a dark liquid like Fevicol, but high on mineral and sugar content. This is what's fermented and then eventually distilled and aged to give you rum. So there are two main styles of rum that are available. If you guys ever have the time, just don't try to collect or read about rum, but also try to find out about rum agricole. One of my favorite styles is a Brazilian one called Leblon Cachaça, which comes from there. Recently, if closer to home, there is a company called Shalong Bay. So when you go to Thailand for your honeymoon or your office visit, end up in Phuket, there's a guy called Thibault and his lady who make this cane spirit together. So start collecting them. They are super fucking tasty. They make brilliant drinks. Like cane spirit is beautiful. They are the old school style of rum. So which brings me back to before I bring Pankaj on, I think he's nearby. I'm going to quickly message him so I can get him on. Sorry about that. Yeah, so why are there different kinds of rum? Why is McDowell's not as good as Old Monk, or Old Monk is not as good as a lot of the other rums? It's a tricky question, right? You are dabbling between patriotism, good rum, or the really fucking good rums, right? So there are a lot of different varieties. There are column still rums, there are pot still rums. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the industry. I particularly am addressing this here because I used to work for Bacardi, right? And I used to sell Bacardi like my life depended on it. And it did. Bacardi is the reason I got to go out of India. I went to Shanghai, I went to fucking Italy, went to Puerto Rico, was on a beach, dancing with Puerto Rican women, eating Puerto Rican food, having the best freaking parties, even drove a Mustang. All because of rum. Bacardi used to make great cocktails. They had a very complex brand ambassador program. Key difference between white and dark rum, I'll take that up in a bit. So my brother, whose name is Atom Rudrajit, he used to always give me shit, and Asta Gupta from Bacardi, they would just talk down to me. They were like, you're fucking out of your wits, Old Monk is the best. And I would try to explain to them that, no man, look at this rum, an 8-year-old rum. They're like, nah boss, Old Monk is the best, say it with us. And I do not disagree, it is the best. I grew up on it. Old Monk and Coke was the first rum drink that I ever had. I remember going onto Tirun, onto the hills, reached all the way up top. The guys had Old Monk, right? It's a dark style rum, has a fair amount of caramel. It's very different from a lot of rums which are there, right? This is the Indian version of rum, which is an IMFL, Indian made foreign liquor. So this bottle initially, back in the 1940s, 50s, was used to bottle something called Old Par whiskey. But when the colonists left, when the English left, the bottle remained back, and this company started bottling rum in there. But we did not make rum in its traditional sense. We knew a version of rum. So it had some amount of sugarcane juice, molasses, which was covered and distilled. And to get the color, they were also adding caramel, which was usually supposed to come from the casks. So it's a specific style of rum, which is popularly also known as the English style of rum, from which Old Monk was discovered. Why is Old Monk or McDowell's not as good as each other? Why they are not as good as a lot of other international rum? It's simple. I attribute it to the fact that a lot of people who produce it do not drink it, or they have not had better rums. So when we drink it, if you know, okay, this is rum, and you believe that Old Monk rum is the best, it will be. But it's when I discovered after 10 years, I had this rum and that rum, and I'm like, okay, this is why it's better, so on and so forth. Aging plays a huge part in making rum good. The kind of oak barrels you use, a lot of them use French oak barrels, a lot of them use American oak barrels, and the rum has to stay in for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You get 8-year-old rums, 12-year-old rums, which are super tasty. Then a lot of the rums post 1900s were all made 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They were made in column stills, right, which are much faster way of production. But popularly, all the good rums that we like now have to come from pot stills. The brands which have not even made to India. Some of those rums are super. Sorry about this, guys. Some of those rums are super tasty. It's just that we have not got them as yet in India. One of those case in point is a rum called Diplomatico. I love the guys. When I went to 28, it was one of my favorite rums. And if I wanted to convert guys and girls from drinking, from drinking generic rums into great quality rums, I would always start off with Diplomatico, which was a Venezuelan rum, super tasty. One of the brand ambassadors is going to come online in a bit. Pankaj, can you send me a request to be on the video so I can get you on? Okay, a little bit of a story. Pankaj is one of my close friends and a buddy I work with in Barback Collective. This is the reason I'm getting him on, because a lot of you guys are asking me about stuff like they're asking me stuff about difference between dark rum, regular rum, good quality rum, where it comes from. So I'm going to get Pankaj on and have a small discussion, and you guys continue sending in questions. Pankaj is a lover boy. That is true. Instagram, fuck you. Pankaj, come in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm here.
Can you see me? Cool. Thank you, man. I've been rattling on for the last 20 minutes about rum. I think I was getting boring. I'm glad you're coming on board. How have you been? Safe?
Very well. I don't think you guys can see me, right? Is it okay?
No.
As long as everyone can hear.
I can hear. Okay. Quick, I give Pankaj's words a lot of weight. He used to work at Taj, was the guy who was running Rick's, and used to come to this bar I used to run called PCO quite a bit. Eventually, we started working together. Anuja, my favorite rum that I'll drink anytime besides my own rum of lovers is a Foursquare Barbados. It's not available, but someday we'll talk about it. Loverboy is not coming on. Pankaj eventually joined Barback Collective and was running it. And one of the projects that we worked on was talking to Alfonso, who was running Diplomatico rum for Asia out of Singapore while I was working there. He was working with a very shitty distributor. Our job was to try and help him get in and get it into the bars. So Pankaj was the guy who got Diplomatico into about 100 bars in 6 months, including running a competition. Right? So he did really well. Pankaj, that's about right. Now you're working for Monkey Shoulder, I get it, and Sailor Jerry and all of that jazz. But I will ask you this. When you saw Diplomatico, what was your feel? Is it something that you had worked with before you drank it? What made you sell it in the Indian market? I think I've lost Pankaj. I'm going to try and get him in again. Fucking Delhi internet. Shift to Goa, Pankaj. Shift to Goa. Anyway, so we had been talking to Alfonso for a very long time, and eventually he got Diplomatico down, right? Which is a darker style rum made in Venezuela, super tasty. It's not cheap because of import duties. It's about 150%, right? So getting that bottle in is not easy. Uh, can anyone see Pankaj? I don't know where he went. I don't think his internet works for anything other than monkey shoulder. So it was a great little tasting dark rum made in authentic style. In about 15-20 minutes, I'll get Peter Chua in as well, who's a brand ambassador, and we'll talk about rum and the kind of bars he was running in. So if you guys ever get the chance, definitely get your hands in a bottle of uh, the bottling looks really good. Okay, so Macarena, can you come online? I'll get you into the story. Okay, so I will get Pankaj in later. Another lady who is definitely part of my rum story, right, is a lady called Macarena Rodger, who's currently working in Singapore, or was working in Singapore. She's going back to Puerto Rico soon when the flights are open again. She was working at a place called Old. She was working at a place called the Other Room and the Other Roof. Great little bars when you go to Singapore. I met her in Puerto Rico and it was super interesting. Puerto Rico is where the Cathedral of Rum exists, and they also make. I think she's coming online. Singapore internet should be good. Puerto Rico has one of my favorite bars, which I've seen called La Factoria. This is where Despacito was shot, and the reason I know of that place is because of Macarena. How you doing, Maca?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Still alive. I've been rattling on for quite some time, taking people through my journey with rum, and just telling them how we met in Puerto Rico and we worked on the Bacardi Legacy competition.
We did.
Right?
We did and survived.
Yeah,
Nobody got any sleep, but we survived.
Puerto Rico is one of the places all of you should go to. A lot of beaches. The food is friggin' amazing. You have a lot of rums there as well, right?
We do. Yeah. Our favorites, our local favorites, yeah. A little known one is Barrilito. Barrilito, that's been in operation since 1880. And they've been aging their rums in sherry casks. One of the first to do it. Yeah, definitely the first in Puerto Rico. And also our beloved Don Q, which obviously dominates the market in Puerto Rico. Yeah. So it's, about 2/3 of Puerto Ricans will definitely drink Don Q.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a matter of.
So I have a question here, right? Because you would probably understand that I have had Don Q, and I've had a lot of good rums. I've had a lot of bad rums. It's all across. So a lot of people are asking me about Indian rums, right? On what is good in Indian rums, what's not good. They are made locally, but then you do know there are some international rums which are just better, right? They taste better, they feel better because production quality is good. The right people are working with them. When you knew about Don Q for the first time and you saw all the other rums, did a similar thing happen with you guys? Like, did anyone ever ask you, why is Don Q? I know Don Q is good, but it's not as good as a lot of other rums which are produced in the world. Did you ever have to deal with questions like that?
I think Don Q particularly has evolved with the international palate, which, when you grow up with something like Bacardi and Don Q, that's what your palate is used to, right? That's what you buy for $7 and you make limoncillo and drink it on the beach. I mean, you grow up with that, right? So it's your favorite. I think particularly Don Q has grown with the international market, especially just releasing sherry cask. They're working on a cognac cask. They have just released a vermouth cask. They're releasing single barrels. So I would say that currently it's up there with, matching the quality of other international rums. But that's been of lately, obviously. They have their one of their family members Roberto Serrayes, who is one of the leaders in the company who's been pushing for this and just kind of getting up there in terms of quality in the international market. But yes, let me not ramble on. Yeah, you do have, you do have a palate that you obviously comes from where you grow up, right? And then as you mentioned, like as you start tasting different things, it develops. And I think that's part of our role, right? Like to educate and to share with people different types of spirits within spirits, right? So if we're talking about rum, when I was growing up, like I absolutely love Bacardi. I still do. But then you taste different things like Barrilito and Don Q, and then other things like Diplomatico, which I absolutely love. And the more you're exposed to different rums and different quality rums, your palate evolves. So you in a way, you can't expect everyone who has not had that opportunity to have the same palate. And that's the fun part of our job, right? To teach people and to show people different things and different spirits. So that's how.
So I do notice that though we that I think that helps, and it's good to know. If I go to Puerto Rico, I'm definitely gonna pick up a bottle of Don Q and get it back, right? But I don't also do know, and it surprises me every time, because though I met you in Puerto Rico, you're not actually from there. You're from Chile.
Correct.
Right? So when you were growing up in college, what was the rum that you guys were drinking?
In college? So I went to college in the States, and we drank mostly bourbon because, it's the States.
Okay.
And then our drink of choice was SoCo and lime.
SoCo.
So, palates evolve. Southern Comfort.
Shit.
So...
Okay, good. I'm gonna quickly bring it back to rum because Southern Comfort. I've not had that in a long time.
Go a whole different direction from there.
So guys, if you remember that a lot of good things came of rum. I learned how to make a lot of rum cocktails in Puerto Rico. They have a place called Caribe Hilton, which is a pilgrimage. That's where one of the stories is that's where the guy called Ramon Monchato Marrero discovered, or rather made, the Pina Colada for the first time, which came from another drink called the Pina Fria. For people who do not, that looks good. For people who do not know what a Pina Colada is, it's usually a rum mixed with coconut cream or coconut water, a little bit of pineapple, sugar, shaken up, served super creamy, super amazing.
Hopefully not creepy.
I waited for a long time to have it at that place. It's the only proper Caribbean tiki cocktail I used to know back in the day. When I went to Caribe Hilton, they made it with a Bacardi 151, which was super interesting, but it works because you're sitting on the beach, nothing really matters. Also had another rum drink, which was called the Miami Vice. If you guys do not know, it's the best slushy drink in the world. It's a combination of two drinks. Could you care to tell them which one's there? Yeah, easy drinking. Miami Vice was a strawberry daiquiri and a pina colada, right? Is that what it was? Yeah. That was
together. Some people do like swirls. Some people mix it all up. Some people do like half and half. It's a dangerous combination. It has a high sugar content, high alcohol content rum. So when you're on the beach and you're, slowly dehydrating, it can lead to a lot of fun.
So one story that I'll definitely tell me, please chime in before you leave, and I can get the other guys in as well. So like I said, Macarena is one of my best buddies in the bartending world that I've met. I met her in Puerto Rico while we were running legacy competition. Some 26 countries were participating. And if you remember, I told you a lot of good things have happened to me because of rum. I remember writing a mail to David and the organizing team that I needed, if I'm coming to US and Puerto Rico, I need a Ford Mustang, right? A red Ford Mustang is what I wrote as a joke. But I do remember when I landed in Puerto Rico, that instead of clearing me out, the guys took me down and gave me keys to a convertible red Mustang. Right? Now, this was a particular challenge because my body is not designed to handle a Mustang. My legs just do not reach. Then the steering wheel was on the wrong side. Americans drive on the wrong side of the road. I'm just kidding.
We drive on the right side.
But it was good fun. In my head, I was like, holy shit, the guys. I know I'm not supposed to use expressive Mohit. I'm so sorry. Just expressing my true feeling. I got my first warning. So, so I did drive it. I did drive it to the competition, but by the time we finished the event, it got a little late, and I was super scared on how to drive the car back 20 kilometers to the hotel that we were staying in to get to the next party. So I sheepishly walked up to this lady and told her that, do you want to drive a Mustang? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I mean, we had met before. We hadn't really spent that much time together. And I had gotten to try out the Mustang because I was running errands. I remember you guys didn't have glassware. They were like, oh my God, go, you know where this is, go get it. I'm like, fuck yeah, what should I drive? And they're like, take the Mustang. I'm like, yeah, of course. So
Yeah.
after
And she drove me. She drove me back to the hotel.
After we finished Legacy, you know, Arijit's like, you know, well, I don't.
I was
really
shit scared.
feel
I was shit scared.
comfortable driving on this side of the road. I'm like, yo, I got you. So we drove as Puerto Ricans drive in Puerto Rico, which is with no regards to speed limit, especially if you're driving a convertible Mustang.
Cool.
And I think
good fun though.
yeah, that definitely solidified our friendship. You know, Arijit.
Okay, I gotta get Peter Chua on, so I've got one last question. What's a good rum cocktail that you like drinking and making, which is simple and easy for the people here?
I think I have to agree with you in terms of the daiquiri. A well-made daiquiri is just amazing. It's easy to make. You know, you can get the ingredients anyway. It's a 3-ingredient cocktail. It's not hard.
And what's your favorite rum?
If you
What rum would you use for your daiquiri? If we came to your bars.
I have a lot of favorites. But I think right now I'm kind of hooked on one. Shameless plug.
No, you just give it.
It's called Lover's Rum.
Yeah.
No,
you know who just came on? Barney from Clippers
Barney,
in New Zealand.
babes.
Rum brother, good to see you.
We met through Bacardi. Fuck yeah.
And we worked in New Orleans together. Okay, I gotta push this forward. Macarena, I love you as always. Stay safe, stay cool.
I love you too.
Puerto Rico.
Take care, guys.
And guys, when she gets back, get to friggin' La Factoria or get to Puerto Rico and find her. She's one of the best. I'll see you soon. Thanks, puppy.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Puppy. Guys, so that was Macarena. I mean, she's done amazing stuff. Daiquiri is a 3-cocktail drink. It's one of the things that everyone knows how to make. How we do it with lovers usually is we use caster sugar. We don't use sugar syrup. 50 mils or 60 mils depending on how adventurous you are. 3 small spoons of caster sugar, mixing spoons that we bartenders use. Lime juice. A lot of people like super sour style daiquiris. I don't like it so sour, so I use about 15 ml of fresh lime juice. Always friggin' fresh lime juice mixed with the rum. And you shake it hard, a combination of cube and crushed ice, and then you move it on to double straining it into a nice glass. So daiquiri is really, really good. It's one of the drinks that every bartender needs to know how to make. When I go to bars, it's the drink that I judge people on, including a Negroni. Those are the 2 drinks I ask them to make. I never ask for fancy drinks. Different rums make different styles. In latest times, another rum that I've enjoyed a lot in my daiquiri besides... it is important to shake it hard, Macarena. Super hard. One of the rums that I have enjoyed in my daiquiri is been Hamden Estate, which is a Jamaican style rum. They are really, really good. But one which is easily available is a Banks 5-year-old. So what they do is it's a style of rum which is a blend of different rums, and they also use Indonesian arak. So it's super tasty. If you cannot go that close, you can always go with Shalong Bay. Okay, cool. Do you guys want to see one more guest? His name is Peter Chua. I'm going to get him online. He is super fantastic. He's the bartender who used to work at 28 with me. He was there from way before. He is currently the Diplomatico brand ambassador for Asia Pacific. One of the best bartenders I know, has represented Singapore on a number of levels. But Peter, could you send me a request whenever you're ready? I hope you people are not getting bored. I know the numbers are dropping, but we keep it going. And we have... Sorry, guys. Just sending... Peter the digits. Yeah. So when you make a daiquiri, I will post it up on the Easy Diner page as well. Usually about 50 mils of the rum, a good quality rum. It'll not give you the same. The Old Monk and the others will not give you the same result. So try to get a great quality rum with you, right? That's super important. It's all about the ingredients that you use. Fresh lime juice, between 15 to 20, depending on how sour or sweet you like your drinks, and 3 spoons of caster sugar, right? You put all of that into a cocktail shaker, fill it up with cube ice, a little bit of crushed ice, put the top part of it on, and shake it hard. How do you get it right? When you think you're done, you shake it extra hard, right? And then you double strain it into a nice martini glass and have it. Simple, simple drink. Ratin Chibur, I have a lot of favorite rums, dude. I do like my lover's rum because I work with a guy called David Cordoba who's known as Mr. Daiquiri. So I tend to have a lot of my daiquiris with this. There is one that I like a lot and I used to use at the bar, which was called Cana Brava, which was really good. Bacardi Ocho makes a nice daiquiri as well. So there are people, if you go around the world, tell them to make a daiquiri with a dark rum, they usually become snooty and put your nose up. But old school or older age, right? A Bacardi 8 has an 8-year-old rum, right? So it makes a great little daiquiri. So it's super, super simple. You guys would have tasted. Thank you, Mr. Bartender, for the recipe. There you go. The Bacardi guy is jumping in and taking that on. Each rum company always makes great daiquiris. A lot of love for the daiquiri goes to a guy called Jennings X Cox, who was I know you will not remember Jennings and S, but you will remember Cox. Mohit, that's not a bad word. It's his name. You can check it. He was an engineer in Cuba in the 1800s. And they used to get a portion of rum and stuff, and his version used to be in a big punch bowl with lime juice, sugar, and ice, which eventually caught daiquiri because of the mines that used to exist there. And from then on, daiquiris become a super, super famous Cuban cocktail. There is another bartender called Constantin Ribalagua from Cuba, who is known as the grandfather of bartending, along with Jerry Thomas. So he did a version which was with crushed ice, which eventually became the frozen daiquiri that we used to, in India, we used to drink at TGIF, right? So a lot of you bartenders who are here and chefs or even consumers who are interested about it, follow Constantine. He's got a lot of amazing cocktails. Just give me 1 second. I'm helping get on to Insta and then on to live. So daiquiri is a super famous drink. Different bartenders have different recipes. You can always alter the sweetness and sour levels. It's all about the balance. The English people, when you go to England, UK, London, they have a different balance for their daiquiris. When you go to US, there's a very different style. Their drinks are usually sweeter. His name was Constantin Ribalagua. Constantin Ribalagua. And there are a lot of different. Okay, I got Peter. Give me 1 second. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1/284. He loves Guns N' Roses. We used to work at 28 Hong Kong Street together. Extremely funny guy. We connected for the first time when we were in a dive bar in New Orleans called Alibi. And from there, worlds come a full circle. We worked together. The last big event that we did was in Taiwan, in Taipei. We did a rum festival where both of us were bartending together. How you doing today, dude?
Bro, we did Wonder Fruit, man. You forgot that big ass festival.
Oh shit! Oh, we did do Wonder Fruit, Thailand, December. We bartended till 3 o'clock in the night. How you doing, dude?
I'm good, bro. I'm good, bro. I was watching George and Phil Bailey talk about some agave spirits, and then I got a bit nostalgic. And then now that Singapore has extended its lockdown, I was like, "Fuck it, it's time to crack open a very expensive bottle of tequila." And I'm like,
Good
here
stuff.
we go.
Whatever,
Yeah.
man. End of the world. You gotta do what make it work. Okay, so we don't have a super amount of time.
No worries.
We have about 110, 115 people here. Quick question. I just gave them a random introduction of what you do. Peter also works at a place. He does 2 different jobs. Besides taking care of his family and other stuff, he also works at Junior, which is a very cool bar in Singapore. If you guys have the chance, please do go there. I wanted to ask you 2 questions. One is, of course, about Diplomatico rum and what it has done to push the rum industry in Asia at a time when rum was coming back into play. And I also wanted to ask you about Junior because you kept on changing the format every 6 months, correct?
Yep, correct.
And you did one which was around rum. So can you lead us through it?
Yeah, cool. So, quick introduction. So, basically, right now, I am the brand ambassador in Asia for Diplomatico Rum. So, Asia, including Greater Asia. And that's my main job, basically. But on the side as well, I do bartend at a bar called Junior. And if everything goes according to plan, I will be part owning Junior alongside my colleague and longtime friend and mentor, Joe Alessandroni. So, that would be cool. So, basically, there'll be the 2 things.
Tall Joe.
Tall Joe, yeah.
Joke.
So we are a bar that changes concept about twice a year. We try to keep it 6 months, but never really follow 6 months because when we change over the concepts, we do a changeover of not just the menu, we do the change of glassware, uniform, design and decor of the bar, obviously the concept and what we're giving in terms of what we're trying to deliver as well. So it basically becomes a brand new bar. So, so what did Arijit say is that we did do a concept that was heavily focused on rum. That was our Tiki concept, which was basically, we called it Pacifica. And it was more like a tropical bar. Obviously, rum being the forerunner of spirits.
You call it Pan Pacifica?
No, we just call it Pacifica.
Pacifica. So this is an interesting question because a lot of bartenders and consumers ask about how to name cocktails or places. Quick question, why Pacifica?
So Pacifica was basically because we wanted to name it. Initially, we wanted to name it after the a musical of a similar name called The Pacific. But then what happened was we decided that was too direct, and also we wanted to name it about islands surrounding the Pacific Ocean. So rather than calling it the Pacific or Pacifico, we decided to give it in a very kind of like a Spanish style where when you put an A at the last part of a word, it's more feminine. So Pacifica, because most of our concepts names are leaning on the feminine side because like how when we talk about a car or a house, we always like to refer it as a she, you know? So we're like, let's stick on the feminine side for names and stuff. So that's how Pacifica kind of came about.
Gotcha. Nice. And so a lot of people also want to learn about the cocktail. What was the one cocktail at Junior Pacifica which was your favorite that people like drinking?
Okay, I don't know if they actually like drinking as much as they like having it. We had a drink called the Return of the Jiangshi, which is basically a Chinese vampire. So we did a zombie variation with a bit more of Asian ingredients and a bit more of a twist to it. Made it a bit more savory, umami.
So quick question, could you just give us a quick brief on the zombie, which is one of my favorite cocktails as well?
So the zombie is supposed to be a drink that would fuck you up very quickly. It's made from, there are a bunch of recipes. The 2 main ones from Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic's are vastly different. One of them is a very simple combination of 3 or 4 different kind of rums, usually an overproof, a white, at that point in time, what was known as a gold rum, a dark rum, fresh lime juice, some triple sec, and some orgeat. And then you have the other version, which has passion fruit, and I couldn't remember one more ingredient that's a bit, and grenadine. They made things a bit more fruity and popular. So we did kind of like a twist between 2 of those. But the original zombie we did without the passion fruit, and then for the jiangshi or the new age ones we call it, we did it with a bit of beetroot and passion fruit and whatnot. I can't exactly remember the ingredients now because I forgot.
If you remember it, send the story and we'll put the recipe up on top for the guys to make it at home.
Oh, that will be a bit difficult to make at home. There's like, I think like 12 ingredients that went into that drink. The zombie is not known to be an easy drink to make at home because there's so much shit that goes in it. But though, there's a cool story behind the zombie. So what happened was, it is said that when the zombie was created at, I think it was Trader Vic's. What was it, Trader Vic's? Oh, Don the Beach, I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was Trader Vic's. When he was
Let's go with Trader Vic's for today.
Let's go to Trader Vic's for now. So what happened was, he had a couple of guests who came to the bar and said that they were angry that he only had a maximum free serving limit for the zombie at his bar. And they were like, we can drink. So why do we have to drink more? Only 3. So he was like, no, trust me, that drink is very strong. It will hurt you later, blah, blah, blah. And then they decided, hey, you know what? How about we challenge you to a drinking competition? And if we win, you let us order more than that. So he said, sure. So the next day they came back and they had a drinking competition on the zombie. And this is where I don't know how scientifically true this is, but apparently what he did was he took sugar syrup and made it with cold water, cold infusion for one, and he made theirs with sugar syrup with hot infusion. Because apparently what happens when you use hot water, it changes the way sucrose works in your body, and with using hot water, it metabolizes the alcohol slower, so it makes you drunk quicker.
Oh, nice.
And so what happened was he gave them the one with the warm sugar syrup made, and then he drank his with
You were
the
telling
cold
me
sugar
they
syrup.
thought about this much? Holy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. I don't know how true the story is, but it's a cool story. It's a cool story, by the way. So what happened was, true enough, they drank it, and then obviously the guys lost out to Trader Vic or Don Beachcomber. I can't remember which one. The two godfathers of Tiki, and they lost. And to prove a point that the zombie was a strong drink, the rule for most bars still stands that if you want to order a zombie, you have max like 3 servings, and that's it. Yeah.
I do. At 28, when I came in, I remember we also had a variation called of the zombie called the 28 days later, right?
Oh fuck yeah, I like that one.
Was that of the zombie? I do remember.
Yeah, that was of the zombie.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
I would love to talk to you more about zombies and Junior, but we had just weaved our way into talking about Diplomatico. And Diplomatico is when I went to Singapore for the first time, started working there. It was the rum I started to pull people in, right? It's a nice, beautiful rum.
Yeah.
I have a good 6-7 minutes with you. Can you tell us about Diplomatico and what you're doing with it?
Cool. So Diplomatico, your first question you asked before was where do I see and how do I see Diplomatico working in the world of spirits and linking it to consumers? Because as you mentioned, Diplomatico is actually the first kind of craft rum that got me into drinking rum as well. And I think one of the main reasons is because not only are we a quality spirit, it's also made in a way that's very approachable. So even without having to know too much about the history behind it or how it's made, just by taste alone, most people find it like, hey, actually this is very approachable. I get it. I realize that rum can be drunk on its own. It need not be in a cocktail per se. Because if you look at what most people's knowledge of rum is, in terms of consumers who don't dive deep into the world of spirits, because, I mean, they don't have to, they would associate rums with beachy drinks, tiki drinks you drink on a holiday, fruity sweet drinks, which is not true. As we've known, you can obviously take rum, and it's a very versatile spirit, and you can use it in many different forms, in many different drinks, and drink it in many different ways. So the cool thing about the Diplomatico brand is that we are basically following that term of versatility where it is superb enough for you to drink it on its own, or pair it with a side of chocolate or orange, or sip in an old-fashioned Manhattan, or if you want to make something as simple as like a daiquiri, or in a zombie, or in the jungle bird per se, you can also go the route. Or hell, if you want to even blend it up in a Miami Vice or strawberry daiquiri frozen, it works. So due to that versatility, it's kind of how Diplomatico is found in its way in basically all the top bars around the world, the most influential bars, and it's why it's still a staple for a lot of the best bartenders in the world as well.
Gotcha.
So moving forward from that question, like for consumers who are attempting to try Diplomatico, like depending on your palate, we do have blended rum, and each rum has its own characteristics. The one we always recommend people starting with is the Diplomatico Reserva Exclusiva, which is the green bottle, the one that got us famous. And in this period where everybody's staying home, just get a bottle, get some oranges and some chocolates.
For the people listening to this, if they ever get a chance to go to Venezuela, even if they're in Singapore, would you say that Diplomatico Reserva Exclusiva is a good rum to pick up for your collection?
Yeah, 100%. If you have never had it before, 100% go grab it. But if you are familiar with Diplomatico as a brand itself, then then try the other things that we have as well. We have the Ambassador. That's if you're willing to put in a bit more money. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth the money. We only do 6,000 bottles a year. And of course, the single vintage as well. So those are good, nice presents to give to people.
Before we finish and I move on to the other two guys, because I'm running out of time, is a lot of people are questioning during your chat. A lot of people asked about Captain Morgan. Right? So I have my specific number of feelings about it, which I don't express. Yeah. I have used it for cocktails before. Yeah. What do you think about how is the world different for Captain Morgan, right? It's very few people know that's a Spicer style rum, but did you use it? What do you feel about it?
Oh, well, I mean, like, of course, when I was younger, as a bartender starting up, I used it because, I mean, Captain Morgan has its place in the world, right? A lot of these brands, people like to shit on them sometimes. They're like, oh, no, this is a cheap brand, blah, blah, blah. But they forget that because these brands are more prominent and they've been there for a while and more easily accessible, young bartenders, entry drinkers go in there and they see that brand first and they learn to use it from that brand. And it is not, like, for example, the reason why, like, Captain Morgan is made in such a way they taste is because it understands its clients are people who have probably never heard of the category of spice rums or even know that rums had category to begin with. So because of that, they basically target their flavor profiles to those people. So, I mean, it's there for its place and it does what it does. For someone who, like for myself, I started drinking Myers and Captain Morgans and whatnot as well. And then from there, it basically was a stepping stone into then learning to appreciate better stuff. It's like when you go and eat, one of the things that you don't really eat in the beginning when you're like eating food, you don't pick stuff that's naturally very bitter or very vegetal or very dry or hard to process. You pick the easy stuff, the sweet stuff, the savory stuff, the stuff that reminds you of something you're familiar with. It's the same thing for drinking and eating in general, or spirit brands in general. So more often than not, I always like to say that there are entry-level brands that people can quickly learn and drink and then realize, okay, this is what I like now, but my palate's maturing, it's evolving, I want something else, and then go from there.
Gotcha. Sweet. Pete, thanks for your time, man.
Cheers, bro. Anytime, bro.
I hope you come to India with Sai and stuff and do some Diplomatico stuff. I wanted people to know about the whole rum industry. Thanks, and I'll catch up with you soon. Hope to see you at the bar, dude.
See you.
Take care, sir.
Cheers.
Gwen, bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, I hope that was fun. The reason I wanted you, hey, Jave, Pete just finished. The reason I wanted you guys to see is rum is a very complex market, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going on. There's a lot of things, like Ratin Chibbar mentioned, palate matures, right? So we don't like to shit on different rums. I think rum is a super, super interesting product. There are a lot of good things happening, but keep your eyes and ears open. There's a lot more going on than just Old Monk and Bacardi and stuff, right? But I have matured as well. So there's a lot of really cool things which are going on. I am not supposed to do a lot of chats, but I will get Pankaj on. But before I do that, I will tell you a little bit about my rum as well, and the reason that it works well, and I like talking about it is the world's evolving really fast. All of you guys can do it, right? If you want to make your own rum, follow your dream, do your research, find out good rums, taste all of them. Just don't get stuck with what you think is good. Listen to other people. Dave Wunrich is a great guy. Ian Ruel, who runs Rumfest in London, is a great guy to listen to. I know a guy called John Go and a bunch of people in Philippines. The kind of rums they're tasting is super interesting. So if you have time, research people like Foursquare. There's a guy called Richard Seal, who is super famous, one of my favorite rums. So when we were making Lovers, right? So Lovers is a rum that was made by bartenders. So David was a bartender who was an ambassador. I am a bartender as well, so we are not producers. But we always wanted to produce a rum that bartenders would enjoy and would love using in their bar and can tell stories about. David's aunt used to read cards, something like a tarot cards, right? So which is very similar to what a rum blender does. You do not know what you're going to get when you put something into the oak barrel. You only know when it comes out. You just guess, right? So it was based on that. And I like graphic novels. So it was a combination of both those ideas. And this is how the label came out. We worked with an artist who was super brilliant, understood what we were doing. So it's based on tarot cards. It's called Lovers, not because me and Davi love each other. It's called Lovers because it's a card. It's a macro arcana card in the tarot card when they read it, right? And that's why it says the number 6. And it represents balance. Makes a great daiquiri. I love it. When people ask me, and the way I like talking about rum is something that's super special, right? It does not need to come. It's not good because it comes from a country, or it's not just spicy or dark or gold. It depends on the people who are making it. So we work with some.
Sorry guys, I'm going to quickly finish this. For whoever's on or not on, I'm going to leave it there. So this is a combination of 5 different rums: Barbados, Nicaragua, Panama, Guatemala, and Dominican. I'm not going to take too much time. Pankaj, if you see this just quickly online, we're going to say hi to everybody. The guys are coming on. I like it. Hey guys, so I think I finished my time, and because I'm in control, I can go on a little bit more because I love talking about rum. Mohit Balachandran, Easy Diner, thank you so much for letting me do this. As they say, it's easier to say sorry than to regret.
So Lovers is our little baby, me and David. We had a guy called Isaac who looked at the friggin' Excel sheet. It's 5 rums: Barbados, Nicaragua, Panama, Guatemala, and Dominican, which are blended together to make this rum. It's not about being spicy or coming from a country, but just a little rum to have. Some people ask me here about Ron Zacapa. I like the rum. It comes from Guatemala. It's made from sugarcane honey. So they do have a very interesting style of making. And boy, do rum and cigars go really, really well. If you have a chance, collect cigars. Keep it for the perfect rum that you get. Get a nice little old fashioned. Get it going. Burn up a cigar. Smoke it. One of my favorite ones that I'm having is from another Indian dude called Rocky Patel, who's super interesting. I usually make rum old fashions. They are super tasty. What you would do is take 3 dashes of Angostura bitter, add a little bit, take 1 sugar cube, or maybe like 5 ml of sugar syrup, 60 mils of the old fashioned ice, and keep on diluting it. Stir it. So whenever you taste rums, the best way to taste them or know their value and worth is to either have an old fashioned or have a daiquiri. So they have both friggin' amazing drinks. So before I end this, I like to tell people, whoever's attending this and listening to this, don't limit yourself to Indian rums. There's a lot that's going on. Read up, look at videos. There are so many chats on it. Rum is a super interesting product. We gravitate towards it. And like I started off, sugarcane was found in India. I don't know why a lot more people are not making amazing Indian rums. It's going to happen soon. We have great quality sugarcane that we export out as well. I used to work for a company called Monkey 47. Their base spirit was made out of molasses. Right? And that's friggin' amazing. And one of the reasons I wanted to learn from them. So like keep on saying, sugarcane has added a lot of value back in the day. I used to do this training program as part of Get a Fix at PCO, which is called The Big History. I hope to do it someday, which spoke about rum and how it influenced the world in such a way that it was a black guy, which was Barack Obama, who was the president of America, and their number 1 rapper was Eminem. And it sounds little, but rums played a part in all of that. It's super interesting. Try to get your hands on good rums. Find out words like research owners like Foursquare, Velier, Richard Seal, the plantation guys. They're amazing. They're easily available. And the closest place from India where you can get good rum is Singapore. Thailand is doing a lot of great stuff. There is a brand that Nix Anuman introduced me, who runs Asia Today and Teens of Thailand, called Ishan, I think, which was made from a specific kind of sugarcane called red sugarcane. So it is just mental. Don't stick to spicy, sweet, black, dark, and gold. There is a lot going on. Sorry, my headphone just went. So find about it, and I am always available. I'm going to put the daiquiri recipe on the Easy Diner page for you guys to have a look through. I hope that was good. Everyone else, I will see you soon. Thank you so much. I apologize for my expletives. I don't mean to, but I just love rum, man. I cannot control it. You guys stay safe. Make good drinks. I'll see you soon. Bye. When Lovers comes in, get a bottle. It's not going to be cheap. It's going to be worth it.